the people must understand that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is a product of the new constitution that was ushered in. And that constitution is a product of ZANU-PF and the two opposition parties, the MDCs. And you know what happened that time when the commission was appointed. It was appointed in accordance with the constitution that gave the president the powers to appoint the commissions. And there was an outcry from civic society that some of the people that were appointed in that commission, Rita Makarau to be specific, who is the chairperson of ZEC, was a former member of parliament for ZANU-PF. But we saw the MDC, specifically the MDC president, Morgan Tsvangirai, coming in to defend that appointment, saying that no one is everyone has a past. He was also once a member of ZANU-PF, and he believed that ZEC could run a credible elections. And also noting what happened during the referendum that ushered in the new constitution, you know, that was an election. And civil society again, the NCA included, complained about the unevenness of the playing field in the run-up to that election. But we also saw the opposition parties saying that that process was credible and the people of Zimbabwe had spoken. But understanding the way elections are run, people should know that an election is not a one-day event. An election is a culmination of processes that precede to the running of that elections. And in Zimbabwe, you know of the violence that happens, the unevenness of the playing field in terms of campaigning of other parties, the unequal access to the media. So for me, an election in Zimbabwe is just a ritual.
On what basis, you know, are they questioning ZEC, number one? And then secondly, I know that the opposition parties and political leaders have been encouraged to bring forward their grievances, you know, before engaging the commission. Do you think that would help?
I don't think that will help, but the challenge we have is that whenever we have elections, we have opposition parties saying that they're boycotting those elections instead of really clamoring for the much-needed reforms to have credible elections. For me, I think that is a process, the chance that we Zimbabwe had got was the writing of a new constitution. Because if the opposition parties were sincere enough, they were supposed to pressurize ZANU-PF to abandon the process that wrote that constitution that gave the president the powers to even appoint all the commissioners that run the elections. And, you know, it's to be very difficult now to discredit that body that you were part and parcel of coming up, the writing of that constitution that gave the president powers to appoint that commission that is running elections in Zimbabwe now.
Well, we also spoke about come 2018, when the elections do take place in Zimbabwe, that you don't think, in your opinion, that a new government will be ushered in at all, and why is that?
Well, 2018 is just around the corner. As I said, that an election is a process. It's not the day of the casting. Now, as we look at the environment in Zimbabwe, there is a lot of intimidation, especially in the rural areas. There's violence that comes along with the elections. There's unequal access, especially to the state media, that is ZTV and the radio stations and the newspapers, specifically the Herald. But we also heard that ZEC is currently looking for 55 million to run those elections. And Zimbabwe, in the situation that we have now, we wonder where that money is going to come from.
Apart from the money itself and wondering where it's going to come from, you know, don't you think that the opposition then is well within its rights to say that, you know, to state that ZEC is not credible because of the fact that people are facing inequalities, and then you have media, which is also facing a number of constraints? Where's the credibility?
Well, I think I've made that point clearly, that the chance that we got was during the time that Zimbabwe had a coalition government. And that coalition government was supposed to come up with a new constitution, and they did come up with a new constitution. And we saw spirited efforts from the MDC specifically, defending that process that excluded the people of Zimbabwe, that excluded civic society. And in that process, certainly you can't say that you are going to have a free and fair elections. So now, I'm sure they're now paying for the sins that they committed during the time that they had a chance of really pushing for adequate reforms, not to say on the eve of an election, that's when you start to clamor for reforms.
So essentially, you're blaming the opposition party for placing themselves in a position where they will not be able, to make the moves they've been wanting to make within Zimbabwe, and that they should, are you blaming them for?
Well, essentially that. I'm putting the blame on them because Zimbabwe we did have a chance. And now if we look at the elections that are coming up, ZEC is now talking of the biometric system, saying
yes.
that, well, it has worked in other countries, it has worked in Yemen, it has worked in Ghana, it has worked in Kenya.
Do they have a plan to bring in the funds in making sure that they can implement and roll that out?
Well, as I say, that currently Zimbabwe is in a quandary. We are in an economic catastrophe situation now, and we wonder where that money is going to come from. But going back to the issue of the biometric system, it's not just about having a system that will, it's not about having a system on the very day, but it is about the process of running the elections. And the situation that is currently obtaining in Zimbabwe does not favor for a real credible election that Zimbabweans can freely participate. We have thousands, if not millions, of Zimbabweans in diaspora who are barred to participate in that election, whereas it's their democratic right to do so. We have a state media that is propagating propaganda in favor of ZANU-PF, shutting out opposition parties, shutting out the civic society, even in conducting voter education. So essentially, what we have in Zimbabwe is not an independent electoral body, but we have a partisan body that is appointed by the president, that is people who have served in the echelons of ZANU-PF, people who have served as members of parliament for ZANU-PF, people who have served in the army, and that as it may, it remains a dream for Zimbabwe to have that credible elections that we're all yearning for.